Oh, what's going on, everybody? It's Nate from For the Win Creators. We are back with another episode of If I Were in My 20s. So, you all know that I love bringing people on my YouTube channel, on my page, to just come and drop, come and bring game, come and drop a lot of gems. You know, I usually have like a lot of CEOs on my pages, and I figured, why not reach out to the people who make the things happen within these companies and get some knowledge from them and see what they would do differently in their 20s. And right now we are dealing a lot with user experience. So I figured, hey, reach out to a couple people, see if they respond back. A lot of people, like you guys, I reached out to so many people about this show, and the response that I've gotten from people to come on has been like amazing. Like I didn't even think I was going to get this many people like responding and offering their time to come on, and so many people really just genuinely wanted to come and drop knowledge for you all, and really show you all the way and what they would have did different, what they would have done differently in their 20s. So today I have my guy Jamie on the show. He has nearly 20 years of experience and 20 years of experience in user experience. So I want to let him give like a little background on himself before we start up. And yeah, so Jamie, just tell them a little bit about yourself, man.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm Jamie Martin. I've been doing design in some form or fashion for, about 20 years now. So I started off my career kind of in the agency space back when UX designers were called web designers, doing kind of cringe websites in Flash and Dreamweaver and stuff like that. Transitioned my career more into kind of UX digital design, was in the SaaS space for a while. Had a startup of my own, and eventually was able to transition my career over into the video game space. So the last 10 years or so, I've been working for a bunch of different kind of video game studios, big and small. And right now I'm currently working for an independent video game studio in San Diego. So yeah, I kind of have experienced it all.
Appreciate that background, man. Because now what I want to ask you first is what made you want to get in the field in general? So like what actually inspired you, like, hey, I want to be a UI guy? Like what inspired that entire
Yeah. So for me, it was just kind of out of necessity. So like right out of like high school, I was making websites for like friends, like bands and stuff like that. And I was just kind of doing like Photoshop work. So transitioning into like, oh, maybe like doing web design or this kind of design work is something that I could do kind of full time instead of like, getting a job at Burger King or something like that. And so, back in the day, there weren't really UX designers. So you were like a web designer. So I was doing a lot of freelance kind of web work, and then eventually was kind of getting more into the agencies that were doing graphic work then started doing like web work as well. So they would eventually kind of have a web team. So that's kind of how I got started.
Okay, no, that's pretty interesting. What I found with like a lot of people have a similar story to you, and also I found like a lot of people who are like animators or like graphic designers, and they're like, hey, I want to learn like what my craft is being applied to. So like, it's pretty interesting hearing like why people actually got into the field and how they got into the field. Now, when it came to you getting your first job at a company, like what was that entire like process like? Was it easy for you to get in? Was it easy for you to really get in the door with these companies, or no?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, there wasn't really a whole lot of remote work. And so like I grew up in a suburb of Phoenix. And so it was me just kind of almost like spamming all like the companies I knew that kind of existed like nearby me, kind of just seeing like if like somebody knew somebody, if I could find some sort of a connection to find somebody that was looking for web work. And so that's what I was able to do. I was able to one of my first jobs was at a company called scrapbook.com, and they were just like this local like e-commerce site that had like this kind of message board going on, and then they had like this kind of store set up as well. And so that was one of my first gigs, working at a e-commerce startup like that. It was an interesting place to work at because the culture was way different, because it was primarily a female run business. So there was me and one other person were the only males there. So it was a interesting kind of first job.
Mm-hmm. So when it came to your portfolio, how did you go about actually structuring out your portfolio to the point where if a person looked at it, they can tell that you can really provide value at whatever place you were applying at? Like,
Yeah,
how did you really get that value across?
yeah, at the start it was tough because my portfolio is basically anything that I had done up to that point. So like my portfolio was like full of like band websites or like band posters and just kind of stuff that I was doing, putting together just to kind of show my like artistic ability and the eye that I had as a designer there. And so as I kind of progressed my career, my portfolio got a lot tighter, and that's one of the things that I probably would have done better at the start. But like to begin, like it was very broad, just like here's all the stuff that I'm able to do.
So when it comes to a person, let's just say, how do you think a person should structure their portfolio? How do you think they should actually structure it in a way to where if a person looks at it, they can say, okay, this person is actually, can actually do this said, job within UX. How do you think a portfolio should be structured?
Yeah, I think that the best way to set yourself up for success is to really kind of figure out what your niche is. To where like one of the problems that I had starting out is that I tried to like advertise myself as like this kind of jack of all trades. And I was like, well, I can do all this, and I have like a little bit of developer experience, and I have graphic design experience. And I thought, man, I'll just fit in great at like this place that is a kind of scrappy place that needs to hire that one person that handles all this like stuff. But what I should have done and what I eventually started to do is really kind of position myself for the specific design job that I wanted. And so like if you're out there like building out your portfolio and you are like just really like a killer icon maker, for example, then you would want to just kind of create a portfolio that just showcases yourself as, I'm so and so, and I make the best icons on the planet. Here's all my amazing icons, and here's my process, and here's the tools that I use, and just kind of really kind of set yourself out. Because if you're a really badass icon maker, but like I have to dive into your portfolio to figure that out because I see like crappy mobile work that you've done because you're not a very good UX designer, but I don't get to see the icons that you've done, for example. So like for me, like it was kind of figuring that out of like, what do I really want to work on and what do I want to do? And like the way that the market works now is that there is that kind of availability out there in the job market to where if you want to be a very specific type of designer, you have that ability to do so. So that's, just all about kind of marketing yourself to the niche that you can kind of perform well in.
That's a lot of game there. That's definitely a lot of game. So really niching down your portfolio and really digging in on your strengths and really showcasing your strengths. So
Totally.
yeah. So I appreciate that. So now let's dig into, what are the top 5 things that you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah. So I think, yeah. So like that is, I was very money driven when I first started. And I know that like I was like initially, even like before like thinking about like going into design, I was like, well, what's the job that I can just kind of get that's going to make me the most money? And initially I was like thinking about, oh, I'm going to go be like an air traffic controller or something like that. And a lot of the initial kind of jobs that I took in my career were kind of driven that way. And so I started off, after the agency route, I started working for a bunch of SaaS companies. And I was working in the marketing automation space, which was really, it was interesting and it had its own set of challenges. And I'm glad that I did that. And I learned a lot. And I have a lot of friends that are still kind of in that whole world. But I wasn't super passionate about marketing automation. I didn't wake up in the morning like super excited to help people send multi-channel emails to their marketing lists and stuff like that. But what ended up happening was that, like I talk about, I hadn't like knowingly like specified that was my niche, but that's what my niche kind of became. And so I found myself like really able to continue down this path of like getting any marketing automation designer job that I wanted. But I didn't really want that. I wanted to kind of go more into kind of consumers or go into to video games. But I had this problem of I have this 10-year-old portfolio of like spreadsheet designs and stuff like that that is like really relevant to that industry. And so I wish that like starting out that I would have maybe gone towards more of the kind of consumer route or gone more towards the type of stuff that interested in me. even if it didn't pay as well, or maybe if it was a little bit more risky, if it was still the stuff that I was more excited to wake up in the morning, kind of going to work to do, that would be like one of the things that I would think about. Um, I think that for me, I was like pretty late to the game with mobile and mobile design. That's something that I think that you could easily have like a career like just only doing that if you wanted to, but like prototyping and doing like all of that, it's going to become even more kind of prevalent as we kind of go forwards of just everything is just going to kind of continue to kind of go mobile. And it's been really interesting being in the video game space of just like how different like the approach that you take to any sort of a design for a game on mobile versus like what you're doing on a console on the desktop is way different. I'd say that um, lately I've been super involved in the local kind of design community and going to events and doing a lot of that networking. Um, that wasn't something that I had really gotten heavily into until I kind of got to the Bay Area. But that's been super valuable, and I've met a lot of contacts, and it's been really good for my career. So I think getting involved in that a lot earlier as well. Um, and yeah, I think that that's a good kind of start there of things that I would have done different.
Appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. So, number one is going passion first. Passion first when it comes to the jobs that you make. Now, I'm really happy that you said that, because that's one of the things that I ask people when they come to me and ask me like, hey, like, you know, what opportunities do you have, or what, whatever that they may ask me. Like, that's honestly one of the first things that I ask people is like, I just reverse the question on them. I ask them like, well, what do you like to do? Like what can you, if we had a conversation, like, what could you just talk about forever? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what are one of those topics that you can just talk about forever? Like that's where I like to really start with people, really, because I meet a lot of senior level designers who have, like, we have conversations, and they're talking about the place they're in right now. They still don't like the place that they're in right now. And so like that's what like really drove me to even start asking people these questions, as far as like, well, what do you like to do? Like, what is a topic that we can just sit and just talk about, and you can feel like you never run out of things to say. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
And then we go there, and then we dig in there and start, okay, well, I have this, and this, and then we can move in there. And I feel like you just live, number one, you live like just a way happier life. And I know it's hard to really think like that when certain people literally need money. You know what I mean? So it's hard to really think like that when certain people really need money. But you number one, you just be a lot happier, and also you will grow faster. Like, not even just like with me just talking about just UX, but just people in general who really dig in on niches that they actually care about. You see they grow super, 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 super fast. So like that's why I'm very happy that you really you mentioned that, because I haven't had another guest actually mention that when I asked him this question, and that's super, super cool. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is mental state. So mental state, I'm a firm believer that this has a lot to do with people's productivity when they work. Now, when people are like younger, like over time, like let's put it like this. You know how people, e- even people, they have like these spurts of like feeling down, or like in like these depressive modes, and maybe it lasts for like a week, 2 weeks, month, whatever, and they can be for multiple different reasons why a person may get like that and get in these modes. You know what I mean? But like over time, you kind of learn a process, or like learn like a system for a way for you to be able to work through these things, or in certain cases get over these things. You know what I mean? But it's just
Yeah.
one of those things you learn like through time. You know what I mean? So like, and these type of things, like I said, can have a big effect on your productivity and the ideas that you can come up with, and a lot of different things. So when you get it, when you find yourself getting in those modes, right, or those cycles, or whatever you may want to call them, like what is a process or steps that you take to really drive yourself like through it or out of those modes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that one of the things that I've gotten better at as I've gotten older is I've allowed myself to be more open and more vulnerable, both with like people in my personal life and in my professional life, to where there might have been a time earlier in my career where I would have felt uncomfortable even like admitting that to like a coworker and saying like, yo, like I'm kind of in a funk right now, or I don't know like where to go with this. But like I found that like when I can be open about that and talk about that with my coworkers or friends or whoever you're kind of in a creative process with, that it's empowering to talk about that, and it normalizes those types of feelings, and it allows you to have a kind of open dialogue with your coworkers and kind of let them know, where you're coming from and what you're feeling. And I found that like when I'm in a funk like that, that it really helps me to just kind of become inspired by like other things kind of involved in the process. And so if I'm working on, a mobile game, for example, then like I'll get together with some coworkers or with some friends, and let's look at other kind of mobile games in the space, and let's talk about what we like about them or what we don't like about them, and see if that can kind of just kind of brainstorm a little bit. Or if you have been kind of crunching on something for a couple days and you're still kind of in that funk, like it's okay to, even take a little break and, go to your kind of local art museum and just kind of take a browse around the floor and maybe take some notes and allow yourself to just kind of decompress a little bit. But, it's all about being a designer is always about just managing and setting those expectations. And so like you just need to be able to let, both your manager and coworkers and like everybody know kind of where you're at and where you're coming from, and where you're at in the process. And so it's okay to admit that like, hey, I'm a little bit lost right now, but I might need a little bit of help, and it's okay to ask for that.
Appreciate that, man. That's a lot of game right there, man, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with those things, man, and that's just real stuff, man. That's why I really like to ask people about those things, man, because it's just real life. It's
Yeah.
like just real life stuff. So I appreciate you giving your advice on that. But overall, you all, this right here is what this show is really all about. Like this show right here is really, I don't I really want to think of the best way to explain it, but it's just like a lot of people just wish that they had like a mentor or somebody that can even just give them even a little speck of information that can really just change the trajectory of where they're going. And like you all, this is really what this show is all about. Like me and him, we've been talking for maybe about 15 minutes now, but you gotten a lot out of this 15 minutes of me and him just sitting here talking. So like this episode is one of many that we have, and a lot of more people are going to come on and really give advice and different types of tips and just talk about what they would have done differently. And I hope that you all find a lot of value in this show, and just keep watching these short snack bite episodes, and just have have fun with them, and get something out of it. So overall, this is For the Win Creatives. I'm Nate. This is Jamie, and we appreciate you all for coming on. So
Yeah, thanks a lot.